All right. Happy New Year, everyone. Here on Mark Rogers TV, we're looking forward to a great 2017 and have so much in store in regards to new channels, new opportunities, new sponsors, all sorts of great stuff going on, and maybe a new set at some point. Wouldn't that be something fabulous? People have been clamoring for me to have some kind of set and not just the blank wall forever. So I really need to do that at some point. But we talk so much football here and just laser focused on the content that we don't deal with much of the periphery bells and whistles. All right, all the loved ones are out of the house celebrating, so I'll say Happy New Year. And this is what I do when I have time to myself. I talk LSU football. All right. Didn't see a whole lot of this game. I threw it on DVR because I was spending time with family, and then I got a little time to review it. So as expected here, LSU defeats Louisville 29-9. So the LSU Tigers, in addition to probably having a good time celebrating the new year themselves, if they're reflecting on football, probably look at tonight's college football playoff games and think, why not us? And sometimes I think that throughout the season since 2011, when they went to the national title game against Alabama. Why not LSU? Along with Ohio State, Alabama, Florida State, and now Clemson, you would have to say year in, year out, LSU's recruiting classes right there at the top. Now, it's understandable this season, considering the dismissal of Les Miles and offensive coordinator Cam Cameron. Too much upheaval to expect from this team. But starting with the issue and the loss at Lambeau Field to start the season, sometimes this LSU team just looked like, and for 50 minutes against Alabama defensively, now that's the game tape to throw on if you're playing Alabama in the national championship game. That 50 minutes that LSU put on the Tide and the 60 minutes that they put up against Lamar Jackson in this one. Aside from the Houston game, and I don't exactly know what happened there. I know Houston with Ed Oliver and company is very stout up front, has athleticism and so forth, but not very deep defensively. Stephen Taylor's a very good player moving on to the NFL, most likely this season. But Houston really put the clamps on Lamar Jackson, but I think the Cardinals kind of sleepwalking in that game. But this was a serious LSU beatdown defensively of Lamar Jackson, because this kid has obviously gone off the whole season, 51 touchdowns and the Heisman Trophy, 220 yards of total offense and 11 first downs. That's all they could do. Jackson himself and 10 for 27 for 153 yards. And the sacks are included in the rushing yardage, and it drives me crazy when I try to look at legitimate rushing defensive efforts against rushing offenses, and you look at these performances by the quarterbacks, and you can't get a gauge because LSU had 8 sacks. So Lamar Jackson ran for more yardage than this, 26 attempts, 33 yards. So that's not accurate because of the sacks. But the LSU defense, 8 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, and 6 passes defensed. It was pretty remarkable. And of course, we'll look into the LSU 2017 outlook a little bit later as the weeks move on into the recruiting period and National Signing Day coming up the first week of February. So we won't get too caught up in projecting forward. Let's just look at this game. Of course, that was LSU's defense, phenomenal. And that was really set up as one of the better bowl matchups. Lamar Jackson as a single athlete against all sorts of athletes on the LSU defense that will be making money on Sunday very soon. And LSU certainly dominated this game, had control of the game, 29-9. On the offensive side, Danny Etling, going to be a senior in 2017. He played well. He's not dynamic, but he might be able to get this team in national championship contention if he just plays to his max and manages the offense. He's not Deshaun Watson and some of the guys that we've seen in bowl season and saw on the other side of the field in this one in Lamar Jackson. 16 of 29, managed the game well, threw the ball well. 2 touchdown passes. Malachi Dupree probably going to the pros. And wow, 3 amazing catches from Dupree. One in the first drive, right down the sideline where he battled the defender and snatched it away. One on an out route where Edling threw a very nice pass. It was like perfect timing and a perfectly lofted pass, but still zip on it to get it past the defender and over his outstretched fingers. And for Dupree, made the great catch. And then the gem of the day was the one-handed down the seam, kind of reaching around the defender. Unfortunately, Malachi needed to make an idiot of himself and get in the face of the defender. Unsportsmanlike conduct, taunting. Why do you taunt a guy? You just beat him. Dumb. Lamar Jackson did have a 57-yard bomb to James Quick, who completely twisted around and turned around one of the aforementioned soon-to-be NFL impact players in Jamal Adams. But aside from that, for an offense at Louisville that led the nation with plays of 10-plus yards and 20-plus yards, not much against the LSU Tigers. Darius Geisen replacing Leonard Fournette down the stretch. Great season. Finished with 1,387 yards rushing, 15 touchdowns, 16 total on this day, a $138 on 26 carries, and he'll be back as a junior next year. And so there you have it. Steve Emsinger, the tight ends coach for the LSU Tigers for the past 8 years, filled in admirably as the offensive coordinator for Cam Cameron down the stretch after Cameron dismissed along with Les Miles. And he goes back to coaching the tight ends as Matt Canada comes in as offensive coordinator and really seeing some of these more dynamic offenses. You see what's wrong with LSU because they rely on the lead play with the single back or the fullback in the lead play, the dive right, the dive left, and the tremendous talents of a Leonard Fournette. And before that, a Jeremy Hill, maybe a little bit too much, a little more creativity probably needed out of this offense. DJ Chark also made an amazing catch on his back at the 2-yard line to set up a touchdown. The junior will be back next year. He caught 26 passes this past season. So for LSU, they finish 8-4 and should blow by Louisville in final rankings. Certainly in the Mark Rogers TV final rankings, they will. They've got 3 decent non-conference games. They don't play any heavyweights, but they've got BYU in Houston to start the season, Syracuse and Troy. And for Louisville, their big dates against Purdue. And, of course, they play Kentucky in Lexington to finish a 9-4, a very disappointing 9-4 campaign in which they were thinking college football playoff, annihilated Florida State early, lost to Clemson down the stretch, could have pulled out that game, and maybe we're not talking about Clemson right now if Louisville converts a fourth and very short late in the game at Clemson. So they only lost that game by 6 and still considered a college football playoff contender, but then they fell apart down the stretch, losing to Houston by 26, losing to Kentucky, and then this game. So there you go. LSU and Louisville, just felt like we needed to talk about this and get it out there. So let us know what you think about LSU under Ed Orgeron in 2017. And the future of Bobby Petrino in Louisville as they march on with Lamar Jackson, a quarterback in 17. And, of course, we'll address the personnel changes in the coming months right here on Mark Rogers TV.